Hello and welcome to today's lecture. Today we're speaking about the Code of Ethics for the nutrition and dietetics profession. Okay, and the Code of Ethics, well, first of all, who is required to comply? The Code of Ethics, those that are required to comply is any nutrition professional who might be credentialed or non-credentialed by the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. But also those who are credentialed by the Commission on Dietetic Registration, who may or may not be members of the Academy of Nutrition and Dietetics. So basically everyone who is working under nutrition and dietetics, they must comply by the Code of Ethics. And the Code of Ethics is composed of the preamble, 4 principles, and 32 standards. So we're going to dive right into them. The first principle, it covers the competence and professional development in practice. And what this means is that all nutrition professionals must practice within evidence-based approaches and competence. The nutrition professional must demonstrate in-depth scientific knowledge of food and human nutrition and behavior, and also to assess the validity and applicability of any scientific evidence without any personal bias. Also, the nutrition professional must be making evidence-based practice decisions and always exercise professional judgment and within the limits of individual qualifications, and also be able to collaborate and seek any counsel when needed, and also even make referrals whenever appropriate. The nutrition professional should also always act in a caring and respectful manner. Okay, always very mindful of the patient care, and always recognizing and respecting individual differences when it relates to even cultural or any ethnic diversity as well. Okay, and in practice within the limits of their scope, and again to collaborate with the health team, the interprofessional team for any further assessments and for appropriate treatment plans. So principle number 2. That one covers integrity in personal and organizational behaviors and practices. And on this one, what we cover is a nutrition professional should always disclose any conflicts of interest, whether that include any financial interest or products or services that can later on it can potentially influence the professional judgment of the nutrition professional, and as well as refraining from accepting any gifts, again, that can also later on it can influence that professional judgment. It also covers complying with all applicable laws and regulations in order to maintain, well, first to obtain and then of course maintain state licensure and any certifications if the state requires. And again, of course, always to use those and maintain that appropriate credentials, always valid, and also to respect intellectual property, meaning that whenever work of others is recognized and is always respected and is always cited correctly, and we always recognize the ideas and the work of others and not take it as our own when it's not, and that includes all mediums of communication, written, oral, electronic, whatever the communication was. And we also want to provide accurate and truthful information, of course, all the time to in all communications to everyone. And we want to report. Also, this is part of our standards. We want to report inappropriate behaviors or treatment of a patient or client when this happens by another nutrition professional, dietetic professional, or even any other professionals. And then also that documentation is so important that we always document accurately and to all the extent and delivery of services, it's done correctly, and we're respecting the patient's autonomy and also confidentiality. We're protecting this, safeguarding their information, and then also implementing any measures that will further protect any health information, such as encryption. That's just one example of them. Principle number 3 deals with professionalism, and this one relates to contributing to decisions that affect the well-being of the patient or the client. We want to participate and have those conversations. We want to be able to remain respectful of the values and rights and knowledge of colleagues and other professionals. Also, we demonstrate respect through dialogue and, again, professionalism in all forms of communication, even including social media, all social media outlets, any type of communication, again, verbal or non-verbal. We want to refrain from communicating, of course, any false or any deceptive or misleading claims. And we want to uphold professional boundaries at all times and refrain from any unhealthy relationships, unprofessional, such as any romantic relationships, or again, or sexual harassment and such. And this involves, again, everybody: patients, surrogates, supervisors, students, clients. I mentioned patients already, so everyone around you. And we want to provide objective evaluations of performance. If you're in a position of having to perform evaluations for employees, you want to, again, remain objective at all times. And also we want to avoid any bias. And we want to promote a healthy literacy whenever you are in the place of evaluating others and evaluating their performance, and communicate that appropriately and in a respectful manner. And contribute to the advancement and competence of others, again, including colleagues and students and the public. So that's under professionalism. Now moving on to principle number 4. This one covers social responsibility for local, regional, national, global nutrition and well-being. In other words, justice. And on this one, the nutrition professional is asked to collaborate with others to reduce health disparities and protect human rights. We want to promote fairness and be objective, and again promote that equitable treatment for all. And contribute our time and expertise to activities that promote respect and integrity and competence of the profession. So we want to also promote the profession, promote the unique role of nutrition and dietetics plays in the hospital or wherever you're at, and just how diverse it is, and just continue to promote that. And engage in services that will benefit the community and also enhance the public's knowledge and trust of the profession. And we want to continue to seek leadership opportunities, again, to enhance the health and nutritional status while protecting the public and just educating them as well. So those are the principles for the Code of Ethics for nutrition and dietetics professionals. And now when we review the video on the case study, we do have this elderly woman who she does suffer from severe dementia. And she is stating that she's disclosing that she's uncomfortable, she's being tube fed, and she doesn't want to be fed from a bag anymore. And she's saying she wants that tube removed, and she requests removal. Her daughter is there, but she does disclose she has severe dementia, and the daughter is concerned for her well-being. And she does say that she tells her mom that's not a good idea, I'm afraid, and she refers to the dietitian. She says, I'm afraid that if we remove that tube, she's not going to get the nutrients that she needs, simply because of her dementia is severe enough that she will literally forget to eat and drink anything. So again, this is an ethical issue, because the dietitian then refers to the patient and she says, Mrs. Sweet, do you have an advance directive? And the patient says, no, I don't believe in that. So I put on here on this slide where you can see we're addressing all 4 principles under all of these concerns in this case study. For example, when the patient she's being tube fed, we are practicing evidence-based, we're using evidence-based approaches with scientific knowledge on food and nutrition, because with the tube fed, we know that that's the way she's receiving the nutrients that she needs, right, to be healthy and get better, whatever her condition is. So we are exercising that professional judgment and that evidence-based knowledge as well. We're also being careful, caring for the patient in a respectful manner. Okay, we do want to ask when the patient does request removal for the tube. Again, we're exercising that principle number 1. Okay, that we're demonstrating that knowledge. We're also principle number 2. We do cover it because we are letting the patient know that we're being accurate and providing accurate and truthful information. We let the patient know you need this tube in order to provide all the nutrients that you need at this time. It's not advisable that we remove the tube. We're also respecting the client's autonomy, okay, and confidentiality. We're not going to go out there and maybe speak to maybe in the lounge about this patient and her concerns. We're exercising professionalism because we're contributing to the decision making that affects the patient. And I'm also even exercising principle number 4, where we're promoting the role of the nutrition professional or the dietitian practitioner as well in this case study. And if I was a dietitian in this case study, I would address Mrs. Sweet's concern when she mentioned that she doesn't have, she wants her tube removed first of all. I would let her know. I said, Mrs. Sweet, I'm so sorry. First of all, I'm so sorry that that you don't want the tube. I know it's uncomfortable. You're letting me know it's uncomfortable, but right now we need you to just hang on a little more. That tube is really is serving a real purpose with you. It's feeding you right now. And we need to leave it in place. Now, when she did ask if she had an advance directive, and she says no, she doesn't believe in those things, I would want to explore that a little bit more, and I would say, Mrs. Sweet, can you please tell me a little bit more about that? You know, what is it that you don't understand, or do you have any questions about how that works, about the advance directive? And if she's having a good moment, that she's not having dementia, she's being lucid, I would definitely ask her, you know, additional questions, or maybe ask her if she wants to explore that a little bit more, and kind of explain to her as well what an advance directive is, letting her know that it's important to maybe explore that option with her daughter or other daughters if she has any. And because whenever her health declines, we want to make sure there's somebody else that can make those decisions for her, somebody that she can trust. And right now she can tell us she can trust. So it's a good time to have that conversation. And then with the daughter, I will also address her concern that she mentioned that she has severe dementia, and she will likely forget to eat anything or drink anything at all. So again, just letting the daughter know, I'd say whenever your mom is having a good moment where dementia is not playing a role in the conversation, talk to her about that. Talk to her if she wants to address it with someone else, or maybe with you, but if she wants to assign somebody to really have power of attorney whenever something happens and needs to make a decision regarding her health. That way she feels she's part of the conversation as well. So again, we're exercising the principle of giving the patient autonomy, and also and we want to respect and her understanding and her belief system. So that's what I would do in that case, and that is all we have right now for our case study and our code of ethics. Thank you so much.